All right, welcome everyone to the ASL Season 19 draft analysis for Showdown League. I am Hutch, joined with. Start talking.
Go.
Wait, neither one of
Brett's
us
not
talk.
gonna go.
It's me. It's
Brett?
It's Brett.
The other Brett.
Yeah.
The other
And then
Brett.
I'm Brad. And Ian's busy. He's got better things to do.
Why do we?
Yeah, Ian's got a big boy job with big boy things. So we're going to be here breaking down the latest season of Showdown after the draft. So anything you guys want to say before we get started here?
Absolutely not. Nothing.
Brad Anderson.
That's what I wanted to say.
Perfect. Thank you, TCP, for chiming in there. All right, so first overall pick, we got Hoopa Heaven, coached by Hunky Donkey. Who wants to start on this one?
Sure, yeah. I'll do it. Hunky Donkey, which is such a weird name. Why would he name himself? But it's a cool team. Fluttermane to me at one was a bit of a surprise pick, just because I think Dragapult and Shinpao are so good. But Fluttermane is choice specs. Just click a move, things happen. Excited to see him use that. I think Meow is absolutely worth a first round pick. To me, getting it in the third round was really exciting. And Quackable also is very exciting. I don't know much about Archaludon, so I'm curious as to how that might play out. It's a fun team. Cincino, I think, is going to be really good with Tidy Up now. Baking is so powerful coming from the tier. It hits so. Not sure if I feel the Charizard. That's maybe probably why I did more of a B and less of like an A. I don't know if Charizard Y is going to get enough support to really feel free to come in matches like this. Because Quackable, sure, it can spin, but it likes to be offensive. And Rotom Frost and Cincino are not what I would call reliable. So, some questions about the viability of a B tier. And historically, I've always said, like, if you want a really great ASL team, you need to nail A and B. You can get it completely wrong in E, and you can mess around in D, but like you really need to nail the A and B tiers. That's why I scored it the way it did.
Yeah, so like you said, Flutter was a little bit of a shock at pick one. I know Hunky's used Shenpao like 6 times already, something insane like that. I think overall I like this team. I give it a B, pretty middle of the road. Couldn't agree more. Meowscarada is deserving of a first round pick. That mon is insane. I like the pairing of Sylveon with Archaludon. I think Archaludon is extremely bulky, but obviously lacks recovery and some special bulk, which Sylveon just completely fixes that. But I feel like Megazard Y is kind of out of place on this team for 2 reasons. One, it means Quackleval is going to have to rapid spin a lot more than it probably wants to. Like, you can't just run like Scarf or Band in a lot of matchups that I think you'd want to. And a little bit more sneaky is this team gets really rocked by Sun because your Dragon type is neutral to fire. Both of your water types are on the offensive side. Like Quillfish is a lot better physically bulky, but especially bulky, it's a little rough. I think the Steelix pick just kind of made no sense in my eyes, to be honest.
TJ pick.
I would have.
It's a total TJ pick.
I would have much preferred just about any other ground than Steelix. I didn't like it here, but I think overall the offense is awesome. Like Sun, it obviously makes sense with Fluttermane. I totally get it. I just think there aren't enough safety precautions to not get counterswept by Sun. I mean, look at like a Great Tusk into this team. A Great Tusk just murders this team, and that's just like the first example off the top of my head. But I think overall it's pretty solid. I think Hunky did a pretty good job with it. Just a few issues that generally all stem from Charizard.
Yeah, that's kind of why I gave it the B minus, is the fact that his removal isn't the best, and it just makes Charizard Y really struggle whenever the hazards get on the field. And I don't really like his defense not having reliable recovery outside of like Wish from Sylveon. I don't really like that all that much, and that's why I gave it the minus that I did.
To be clear, I love Charizard Y. That mon hits like a truck, but you have to like properly plan around its issues because its issues are very glaring. But overall, gets a B average. And we move on to the second pick in the draft, the champion of last season, Restless Komala. I'll go ahead and take this one to start. So he starts out with Gouging Fire, in my opinion, the best new mon added. Just a monster of a setup Pokemon. Just think of Mega Charizard X, just better. He's going to pair it off with Ogerpon Wellspring. Makes plenty of sense. He's going to get rid of those water types. He's going to get rid of those ground types for Gouging Fire. But in his second round, he actually took Ninetales Alola, which is just disgusting with Gouging Fire, who's already extremely bulky and is very good at setting up. Going to be able to bring that Veil in, and then let's bring in some more bulk. We'll call it a Corviknight Swampert Core, which is just perfectly covering itself typing wise. Corviknight just being a monster defensively, Swampert having a lot of utility, getting knockoff this DLC, which is important to note. Hoop Unbound is always just insanely hard to swap into, unless you have a fairy type, but you're going to have to take a gunk shot. Crobat gives him some top end speed, Arctozolt to capitalize on some of that snow. Hitmontop giving him some more removal options outside of Crobat and Corviknight. Shuckle, I don't think Shuckle's very good, but then again, I lost to it in the finals, so who am I to say anything about it? Regice just kind of feels out of place here, but as a free Terra, I can see it. And then Toucannon, another Mon that I don't really get it when you already have Corviknight and Crobat, but we'll see what happens.
It's just not gonna.
I really like the Ninetales with the Aurora Veil and Hoopa Unbound. I think it helps that out defensively quite a lot because that thing does not like taking U-turns whatsoever. Um, I like the typing coverage of Swampert and Corviknight, but I've always hated that Swampert doesn't have recovery. I really wish it did, and he doesn't have Wish on this team, I don't think.
No, it does not have Wish.
But they really do cover the typings of each other pretty well. And I like basically every single Ogerpon form besides like the grass one. That one sucks. And I haven't actually seen Wellspring in a battle against myself. So I don't know how that thing performs, but I've been told it's good. Gouging Fire is really interesting. That thing has a lot that it can do. And just by Hutch saying that it's like Charizard X, but you can actually use an item, I don't know if I fully agree with that, because Charizard's ability is really good with its physical moves. And
Photosynthesis.
I mean, does he have Sun? I don't see Sun.
I'm sure Toucannon gets it. That's why I drafted it, right?
But yeah, I don't see any Sun to make use of the photosynthesis. So, you can't really make use of that without running Sunny Day, and that's just a wasted turn, kind of. Toucannon, I've used that once and it was great, but it's kind of redundant. But overall, good team.
Congrats to the reigning champion. More flying types is really my thing. More flying types. Drop Swampert, drop Shuckle, grab some more flying types, and just really go after them. No steel can stand in the way. You've got Gouging Fire. Slap on a Staraptor and you're ready. It is interesting to me to see like a pocket no team with Arctozolt and Ninetales packaged in with Gouging Fire and Ogerpon. I don't know if synergistically those fit super well, but still would be pretty dangerous to face. I'm excited to see this team. I love Toucannon. I've talked about it before in chat. Crobat's super reliable. I think Wellspring is going to be really reliable. I don't know if Hoopa Unbound is maybe my choice there, but it is a nice breaker to go along with Gouging, which should be Dragon Dancing for setting up. So I'm really excited to see how this team plays out. I don't love like the bottom five. Hitmontop has versatility, but outside of that, I'm not sure I'm in love with the bottom five. I think the top 6 or 7 are so good that this team should be really, really good.
Yeah, I find the same gripe. Like, I feel like there's a lot. I actually don't think Arc Result is good. Might be an unpopular opinion, but I feel like the bottom five is really rough, and it probably holds this team back from being an A. Moving on to the third overall pick, we have yours truly, Brad. Brad, do you want to take this away, or do you want someone else to start with it?
I don't care. It's a fine team. I think it's more suited to what I like to do than maybe a traditional team would be. It's a lot of momentum, a lot of offense, a lot of uh, kind of immediate offense, which is something I enjoy. I think Treads hits pretty hard. Heracross, obviously, it's very, very hard. Thunder is pretty imposing right away. Hatterene can hit pretty hard right away. Uh, Spike support. Dragapult is a nice kind of mixed attacker that'll clean up a lot of things. I think I really personally think I maximized on my Ether picks. Soul Rock is a bit niche. Eye now getting screens access, and of course, obviously, prankster shenanigans, and Muck now getting knockoff, toxic spikes. I think that's a really, really elite pick for E. So I think I got some nice things in my D tier, my E tier, and I think the higher end picks, maybe unconventional, but I think line up really nicely with what I do.
Yeah, I really like the fact that Iron Treads isn't in the same situation that I kind of had it at the beginning of last season, as being forced to be defensive and having to run rocks and spin all the time, because due to the fact that Samurott is so reliable at just clicking Cecil Sedge and getting those spikes, you don't have to rely on Treads coming in setting rocks all the time. You can just throw a band on that thing or even do some other stuff with it. Dragapult's always really nice, the versatility of that thing. Thunderous is amazing. It can sweep, it can break, it can do both. Shaman is amazing defensively. I really like Talonflame's versatility as well. That thing's a pretty reliable remover, as well as being able to break, being able to have priority with Gale Wings and all of that. And Ursaring's always really good defensively. I don't think you talked about that yet, but ever since Ursaluna came in here, that thing can run and have Eviolite now, and it can do a lot defensively for your team.
Yeah, so the theme that I look at this team is it's kind of a team that there's a bunch of mons on here that you can genuinely justify bringing to all 13 games. Dragapult, it's good in every game. Iron Shreds, it's got so much utility, it's good in every game. Samurott Hisui, you want to click Cecil's Edge every single game. Shaman, you can build the defensive set for every single game. Mega Heracross, the highest allowable attack stat in this format. It's going to kill something every game. Thunder's Therian has so many different sets. Ursaring's super great. Talonflame is awesome. Hat is very versatile. And even Muck. Muck is probably one of the best E tiers we have here. Has a great move pool for what it needs to be. I think this is one of the best rosters, as we'll see by my grading. I also like the attention to detail with the Steel Terra type on Shaman, with the fact that Treads, it's a steel type, but it doesn't resist ice, and it's also not the bulkiest. Treads certainly has some bulk to it, but you're gonna want to be using it a lot more proactively, so you're gonna be maybe taking more damage on it. Yeah, I mean, there's few issues with this team for the most part. Um, I do think I would prefer maybe a little bit better of a fairy killer, but Treads is also certainly good. Um, Maybe a more dedicated physical wall, but I'm just really nitpicking at this point. This team, the top 10 Mons, like Sableye and Solrock, are probably only going to come like a handful of times. But the other top 10, you can assume can come to like almost every single game. Um, and you don't even know what they're going to run every time because it's 10 Mons that, whether they're mixed or whether they're a bunch of different sets. Mega Heracross is a demon with Trailblaze, or hell, you could even bring it Spikes. Who knows? A little bit of a lack of a Stealth Rock setter. All you have for that is Treads and Soul Rock, but who cares when Samurott just gets to click Ceaseless Edge, which is sharpness boosted. So I think this is a fantastic roster. you're kind of just nitpicking to find things you don't like about it.
Yeah, moving on to Shadow next. I rated his draft a C plus. I think the biggest thing that he has going for him is the fact that his defensive core is so good with Toxapex, Skeledirge, and Tangrowth. I am the biggest advocate for hating on Mega Aerodactyl because I've never been able to hit a single move with that thing in my life.
So real.
Great Tusk is one of the best mons in the game. I had the pleasure of using it in season 17, and it really made me happy with how well it can do. I think Great Tusk is a mon that Shadow will really like, and I think he could probably use it really well. Orbeetle is kind of a jack of all trades, especially with free Terra. Swallow, it hits hard with Terra normal, but it's kind of weird on the team. And he doesn't have a steel type, and his Wigglytuff is the only fairy, which I've never really liked Wigglytuff. But yeah, he doesn't have very strong offense on the special side, and I had to lower it a lot for that.
Yeah, so like you said, I actually think Wigglytuff is really good value. It's obviously not ideal. Um, a lot of the issues I have with this team is when Shadow picked things. Like I don't think he prioritized a lot of things properly. I think getting Pex and Tangrowth early makes sense. Get your wall core. 100% agree with that. But Glaceon in round 6 makes genuinely no sense to me. Um, this Mon doesn't really have a spot on the roster. You don't need a wish pass per se. You have a regen core. So, and it's not like you have a Mon that really desires wish. Your whole wall core, Skeledirge, Toxapex, Tangrowth, they'll have very easy recovery. Um, don't love the Mega Arrow, like you said. I beat you simply because it missed 3 dual wing beats in a row, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was either 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But you also have to click Stone Edge, which is even worse accuracy. I love the Tusk, Pex, Dirge, Tangrowth. Those 4 picks, awesome. I think Orbeetle in a free Terra is totally worth it. I had that thing in season 17. It's awesome. Don't like the Glaceon. Swallow feels really out of place, especially for round 4. I think that was too early. I don't really like Zoroark. His best special attacker is Skeledirge, which also just feels very weird when you have something like Great Tusk that's gonna punch through so many walls on the physical side. Um, I will cut him some slack here because he got mega sniped on Raging Bolt. He got devastatingly sniped on Raging Bolt, and you could really feel it the whole time, even before the free agents. Like he had Torkoal on this team before. It was going to be Great Tusk, Raging Bolt with Sun in a Toxapex Tangrowth core. I would have loved that team. So I can only really fault you that much, Shadow. I think the free agents are really saving this. I think Regidrago is really good. I just really don't know why it's not your Terra captain. Um, like in my eyes, I would drop Swallow and make Regidrago the Terra captain because that thing is a genuine threat from how bulky it is. Um, but I think there's a few issues that can be addressed in this team, and we're looking at a really good defensive core that has some sneaky offense. So it's not completely dead in the water. I just think for the fact of no steel type, no Terra steel type other than Orbeetle, Wigglytuff, and then the fact that it's like there's not a lot of special offense going. It leaves a little bit to be desired.
It does, but being the highest grader of the team, it's not a perfect team composition. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to play this team. You're going to be facing Tusk, Pex, Tangrowth, Dirge, and then some combo of the other 2 mons. Like, just that core of 4 is going to be a pain in the neck. Like, it doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter your team build. The combo of those 4 is going to suck. Every single week, it's going to suck to have to deal with those 4. So I gave it the B minus, a little bit higher score, really off the back of those 4. I think Great Tusk is amazing. I think it's absolutely a top 5 maybe top 7 at worst. On in format, you combine that with 3 months that really just don't die ever. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really frustrating team to have to play. I don't really know how he's going to piece together his offense with the last 2 slots. But I think it's going to be fun, and I think Orbital with free tear is awful. Well, the thing that's held Orbital back for forever is really just its type. Given that thing like Steel or Fairy or something like that, it's going to be really sneaky good, I think. But overall, not like a perfect team composition, but I don't want to face it.
Yeah, this is definitely one I could be very wrong on. I might just be fixating too much on the issues because you're right that core 4 is pretty disgusting outside of like a big special attacker. But moving on to 5th pick in the draft, we had Flash taking Bundle with the 5th pick. And then he went to the next round, went with the double Dragon back-to-back when Gujar Hisui and Latias. So forming a lot of special offense. And then he had to kick it into gear with Saraledge and Breloom going for some more physical offense. Goes with Seismitoad, just phenomenal mon. I think Seismitoad's kind of undervalued. I think it's a lot worse now that Swampert gets knockoff, because that was always what Seismitoad could hold over it. And Seismitoad obviously doesn't get flip turn, but Seismitoad is still great. It's awesome with Gudra, awesome with Latias. I think Raibombi is one of the best fairies in D tier, along with the likes of DNC and Comfey. That thing hits like a truck, gives you some options for Sticky Web, which is really good for something like Breloom or Saraledge. I think Drapion's really good in tier D. I had it last season. It's just it's a typing that is just so useful in so many matchups. I don't really get the Heliolisk because he's not running either Rain or Sun, but I think Heliolisk is very powerful. I think Hyper Voice comes off very strong. Just a slightly better version of Raichu, in all honesty, because you get those stab Hyper Voices. I think Auroras makes a lot of sense. This is a combo that Susie had last season with Bundle and Auroras. So you're able to click something like a Blizzard coming off of Bundle is just insane. Thwacky, I actually think Thwacky's fairly good. Gives this team a defensive grass type, and Thwacky gets stuff like knockoff. It's pretty bulky with Eviolite, Grassy Glide, obviously. And then he rounds it out with Swanna, sorry. Swanna because he needed a third water type. But I think overall, I don't love this team on the merit that I think it loses to a lot of water types, because the best way to check a bundle is a water type, because you force it to use its lowest base power move and freeze dry. Gudra can't really touch water types. Latias, kinda. Saraledge gets walled by it. And you'll say, well, Breloom can break it, but Breloom's a lot slower. You have to remember that, and every water type in the world gets an ice move. And I think Breloom's speed tier at this point, in a lot of scenarios, it's going to come back to bite it. I also don't really like Gudra and Latias together. I know they don't share any common weakness. And the steel typing with Latias really cover each other pretty well. I just don't get it, I guess. I don't understand what Gudra is doing for this team. Like if you're getting Latias, I think Latias in B is phenomenal. That's awesome value. But then why are you also taking Gudra? I don't get it quite as much, which is possibly why I have it as a lower grade.
I think the reason why I rated it into C plus is because I'm not seeing very obvious synergies besides Iron Bundle and Auroras. It's a lot of mons that excel in like one or two things, but they don't really mesh very well together, I don't think. Saraledge, I don't think anybody had it last season. So we haven't got to see it in a little while. But I've always liked what it can do with Bitterblade being able to heal itself, and that it has Shadow Sneak. So it'd be interesting to see how well he uses that. I think that's one of the core pieces he's going to have to utilize pretty well to make this team work. Drapion is always good with its two typings. It's a very good type combination that you want to seek for. But yeah, I don't really see any obvious synergies that makes me want to rate this team any higher than I have.
I think a little bit more than most. It sounds like. I mean, bundle it to me is it's a bundle full of hopes and prayers. Like, are you going to hit hydro pump? Is this thing going to work out for me? I think it's a really fun mod, but a bit disastrous at times. I think Goodra is super bulky. Uh, nice little mix attacker. I think Goodra gaining and steel typing is so helpful to the mod overall. Latias is so reliable. It can run any set basically. You're very good. I don't particularly love the combination of Ceruledge and Breloom. They're both kind of slower than base 100 physical attackers that die relatively easily. I don't know that they necessarily should both be on the same team, and maybe one of them be a special attacker or something like that. But they're both very good in their own right. Should be pretty exciting. I love Rabambi. I love Webs. It's always helpful. I don't like Auroras. Dravos gave me nightmares about that mod. It smoked me. I don't love Swanna and Wacky. I know they have niche sets, but I don't think that they're going to be reliable brings most of the time. But some really nice mons here. Heliolisk is super fun, and it's going to be really necessary for this team, I think. I think dealing with waters. Breloom can't do that reliably, in my opinion, because of its speed and its lack of defensive capabilities. Heliolisk is going to be really necessary. Will be one of the more relied upon D tiers probably in the league, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I
But
totally agree with like the point of Heliolisk. Like you want to combine the bundle bolt beam, and you got to rely on Heliolisk.
on to my boy Keister and the Phoenix Flygons, getting like to me maybe the number 1 or number 2 pick in the number 6 slot. Lucky dog, you. I like this team quite a bit. I think Chin Pao slaps hard physically. I think Iron Moth hits very hard on the special side, and you have about as annoying as a pairing as you're going to get in Slowbro and Gliscor. Those first 4 feel like 10 games each at minimum. Can come a lot superior. Really experimental, I think, with the stellar typing. I'm super excited to see if that can be good. I think it can. That's why I tried to draft it. But I'm not sure that it can. So I think it's worth a gamble. And if it's not working out, obviously, he has free agent transactions. Pinkaton's super cool. I think it's a really fun C tier, and I think it pairs really well with the Gliscor Slowbro. Electros is one of my very favorite electric types. The bottom of his team has like I don't know, it's interesting to me because like Sneasel is fast, it's really quick, it's got a pretty decent move pool. I think it could be pretty useful. I think people are quick to forget that Cadaver has 120 special attack and hits like an absolute tank. Uh, I think those could be sneaky plays, but we'll see.
Yeah, I quite like the offense coming out of Chin Pao and Iron Moth, both being very good breakers on both of their attacking stats. I really like Superior as a Terra captain. Like Brad was talking about Stellar, I would have preferred it having something like Terra Fire. Now that it has access to Terra Blast in our league, I think that might have been better. But it will be fun to see what Terra Stellar does for it. If it can make that work pretty well. um, I really like Diplin. Every time I face that thing, it is really bulky. I like the Terra on Oricorio, but Diplin could also be a pretty good Terra captain if it's a free Terra. I've seen that thing take mega hits because of the fact that it can run Eviolite. I've never been a big fan of Licky Licky. It's pretty bulky and it does wish stuff, but never been a big fan of that. And Tinkaton, I've only ever seen it do great things. I really like that little mon there.
Yeah, so I really, really like this team, and it cannot be understated how stupid it is that Shen Pao lasted past pick 1, but to pick 6, which is ironic because in Wi-Fi it lasted till pick 9. But anyways, um, Shen Pao with the offensive capabilities of Iron Moth, they just complement each other so well. The only thing that's really going to deal with both of those is a water type, but Iron Moth, you still have to remember it gets grass moves and it gets electric moves. So, not necessarily. I think Slowbro Gliscor is just cringe, in all honesty. I've played a game that went 179 turns because my opponent just went back and forth between their Slowbro and their Gliscor. And then you factor in Tinkaton, which it's like, okay, well, it's weak to freeze dry. Well, Tinkaton is phenomenal. It's a mon. It's kind of like Dawn Fan in the regard that it's like it's not great at anything, or it's not the best at anything, but it's so good at what it does. It's gonna click knockoff. It's one of the best typings in the game. It's gonna get rocks up. It's got plenty of things like Encore and Thunderwave that are super super good. Swords Dance if you want to be more like of a stall breaker set. I think the Superior is interesting. It forced me to draft a certain mon solely because of how insane this thing sounded. But I actually agree with Brett in the fact that I think like a Terra Fire would have made a lot more sense because I've drafted Superior before it got Terra Blast, and it's just not quite as good. And it was always like, well, if it got Terra Blast, it could break through this. And I get the point of Stellar type, but I feel like also people could just not Terra their Mon, and you don't get the drop from Stellar. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I'm pretty sure you only get the drop, which in this case would be the stat raise, if you're Terra Blasting a Terra Mon. So I think there's a lot, it's banking on a lot more things. It could be broken, who knows? But I'm interested to see how it works. I think the top 6 is just phenomenal. It's maybe the best top 6 in the entire league. I think Oricorio Malone demonstrated that thing's prowess as a free Terramon. Last season, it got like 13 kills or something crazy like that. That thing is a demon. Electros is kind of whatever, but I think it's a good mon that's still held up pretty well. It could be a coil set, could just be, it doesn't have a weakness. I think Licky Licky makes some sense on this team. It's kind of the same argument as Shadow's team in the regard that it's like you probably don't need a Wish Passer when you have this like Slowbro Gliscor. They're already getting health just by existing core, but Licky Licky's just a good wall. He was very Ghost Weak other than that. I'm not the biggest fan of Diplin. That's probably an unpopular opinion, but I feel like it's better in Paldea decks because there's less Toxic running around. I think in Nat decks it's not as good because there's a lot of Toxic, which I think just ruins Diplin. But overall, I think it could be really bulky. I think Sneasel Hisui is pretty sneaky in how offensive it can be. Great offensive typing, fairly fast. I think that thing is actually really, really good. Then Kadabra, a decent mon. It's base 105 speed, and like Brad said, it's 120 special attack. That thing hits like an absolute truck. This is probably one of my favorite drafts. Lacks a few things here and there. Like I said, I'm not sold on Superior yet. I think this team is gonna bank a lot on the Terra captains. Can Oricorio get a lot of value? Can Superior get a lot of value? I feel like if those two things aren't true, this team will be like an 8-win team that's like good but not great. You know what I mean? But overall, I think Shen Pao at 6 is just stupid and should never happen in any draft ever. But moving on to number 7, we have Lechonk, who wants to take away the probably the best weather team of the season, I would say.
Yeah, I really want to hear you talk about this Hutch because of one in particular.
Let's do it. Darkrai fucking sucks. Okay. Got it out of the way. Darkrai sucks. Amon is horrible. But in all seriousness, Darkrai is the conundrum of Darkrai, right? You think it's great because it's a legendary. It was banned in the past. If you run like a bunch of calcs on Darkrai, it's a mon that's going to do 45%. And that's it. It doesn't ever really get over the line in a lot of regards, which is why it's A2 and not A1. So people might find that surprising, but just just draft a bulky normal. It can't get through you. Like, this thing has a lot of flaws that it's just really crazy how often it gets taken as a first round pick. I think it's worth an A tier pick. It's obviously broken in B. I don't think it's ever worth a first round pick. I don't ever think it's worth a first round pick. I still gave this draft a B because I think the rest of the team is actually pretty solid. I think Scizor remedies a lot of those issues. It gets close combat now uh, instead of superpower to get rid of those normal types. Darkrai also has a big problem dealing with dark types, which Scizor can just U-turn on. So I think Scizor is a really crucial piece here. I think Necrozma for general bulk is pretty good. Necrozma Guja is really, really bulky. Um, Obviously Mega Swampert, it's a rain team. It's funny. First first go around for the Pelipper pick was actually supposed to be Politoed. And then I asked Lechonk, I was like, "Are you sure you don't want Pelipper?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll go Pelipper then." So he was originally going to get Politoed. And then I reminded him the Pelipper's a thing. So that we could have had Politoed on this team, which I would have probably dropped it a significant amount because since I think Pelipper's really good. But this is probably the only facet you could run Regieleki in where it's like you have a lot of water spam. You're going to open up those ground types, get them out of here so Regieleki can just spam Thunder and kill everything. I think Goodra is a good piece. Originally with Chandelure, I think Goodra's so much better with the Terra Steel as well, which is really good because of how you're going to have to use Scizor in this team. Whimsicott's awesome. I think Toxicroak is fairly underrated. It's also a Rain Mon that can function outside of Rain. He has Bear Tick for a Rain Sweeper. Free Terra, Bear Tick is awesome. Ground, Electric, just Terraing an Ice type is so good. Sudowoodo's a waste of a pick, and I think Pyroar is always a good E tier. Um, I think overall this is a solid team. It's probably one of Lechonk's drafts that I've liked the most. Like I said, I think Sudowoodo's a complete waste of a pick. I know it gets like Rockhead, but let's be real. There's probably a better rock type that you could find out there. I think it relies a little bit too much on Rain, maybe, and I think Darkrai isn't good. And I think he maybe missed out on a B tier instead of Necrozma that would have probably complemented things a little better by going Darkrai in round one. But I think overall this is a fairly solid team.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that it's really solid. It has a lot of mons that I personally can't use well, but I know their value. Specifically Whimsicott. I keep putting that thing on teams and I suck with it, and I don't know why I keep doing it. But I've seen lots of people use that thing pretty well. It's a really good supportive mon. Necrozma I've always really liked. It can break, it can do bulky things, it can set up, it can do so much. So I personally do like the Necrozma pick because you can kind of fill it into a bunch of different roles. And I think it being able to go into a bunch of different roles helps his team out. Regieleki, since he has weather, you can run that thunder move. And Goodra is always a really good special wall. So I like that. Bear Ticket's rain like Swift Swim, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets both.
Okay, it gets that. So at least it can use that. At first I didn't know why it was there, and then I remembered it got that, but that's a good low tier sweeper. And Pyro is always good as a nice budget fire type.
Yeah, I think this team is maybe 2 mons away from being like a solid A, like not an A minus, not an A plus maybe, but like a solid A. Like replace Darkrai with Torn-T and replace Sudowoodo with another ground type, and I think this team's an A. It's gonna be a rain team. This team should be a rain team, probably every. That's gonna be its strongest, to me, chance. I think this team without rain is really not good, my personal estimation. But with rain, Gudra's going to help a lot with the grass types. Toxicroak can take a water move. I hate that Swampert's his only ground because that's his, obviously his electric immunity. So he's going to have to take electric damage probably elsewhere because there's a lot of grass moves that tend to end up on, like grass knot ends up on some electric mons and so forth. So if this team had Quarantine instead of Darkrai to support the rain even more. Maybe one more ground type to help with immunity, or something like a Thundersterium or something of that nature to help with electric immunity. I think that might be a little bit better. But otherwise, I think it's a really nice rain team. I mean, Pert's super powerful. Scizors appreciates the rain. I think Goodger's going to be super annoying. Beartic should be really powerful, like Loaded Dice, Terra Ice, Icicle Spear. That's going to be a pain in the butt. So I like this team. I just think it was one or two picks away from being a high-end rain team, as opposed to, in my opinion, a good to decent rain team.
Yeah, so moving on to and that's actually a good point, that Mega Swampert should not be your only ground type in a rain team. But moving on to the 8th overall pick, do you want to go ahead and start with yourself, Brett?
Yeah, sure. I was really excited for this team because my goal for my draft was to actually draft a team where I could use Spectrier pretty well. Season 17, I wanted to do that, and I didn't get what I wanted, and I didn't feel like I could keep Spectrier on that team, and I've really wanted to try it. So that was my goal in forming this draft. So I started out with, well, I didn't start out with Spectrier, but it's my A1. I picked it as my last pick because I kind of knew that nobody was going to get it. I don't know why people don't draft this thing, but it's really freaking good, especially in this format. Slowking Galar is such a good defensive Pokemon. With Regenerator, with Hydrapple, I think it could be a pretty good defensive too there. They don't share any weaknesses. Zapdos Galarian is another mon that I've really wanted to try. Mainly because I had Zapdos last season and I wanted to try the other Zapdos this season. So I wanted to fit it on there, and I think it works pretty well. I've got Mega Blastoise here. Pretty decent remover. It hits really hard as well with its water pulses and stuff. Satitan was a mon that Lily talked me into. Initially, I don't even remember what we initially had, but I didn't have Satitan, that's for sure. And after looking at it, I think it fits really well on this team. I was really excited to try Free Terra Ambipom because that thing gets so many different moves, and Technician boosted, Loaded Dice, Tail Slap Terra Normal is going to be so good. Fortress is an okay steel type. I think I remedy its fire weaknesses quite a lot. I think I'll be able to use that well. And then the E tiers, I kind of just put them on there. I didn't really know what specifically, so Lily gave these to me. Lipard can do prankster shenanigans. Rotom Fan, definitely going to run air balloon on that thing. And then Camerupt is a nice electric immunity in E tier.
I like a lot of what this team is. I think, to me, there are a few things that you'll fix in free agency, I would suspect. But Spectrier, Zapdos Galar is going to be a defensive issue for every team, pretty much no matter what they have, except maybe Shadow. Slowking's great. I think round one Slowking, I'm totally fine with. Slowking is one of those mons to me. It's just like laying the foundation before you build the house. I mean, it's going to be good. It's going to take hits. It's going to support everything really well. It's a nice one. I'm super excited about the Titan and C, especially with Grass Terra. I really like that. I don't know what to think of Hydrapple, personally. Looking at its stats and some of its move pool and its abilities, could be great. Also, is a pretty bad quad weakness. I'm really interested to see how this works. I genuinely don't know, and I'm very curious. My biggest issue probably with a team, even though I created an A minus, clearly I like it a lot, but I think you're pretty electric weak with Zapdos, with Blastoise. You have other mons that don't want to take many electric hits, and your only way to completely stop electric, or there's no absorbers, Camerupt's your only ground type. So it's going to be like Slowking Galar comes into a Volt Switch. Slowking Galar comes into a Volt Switch over and over and over again. I don't think that's ideal. So I would suspect at some point we'll make the decision to say, hey, I really need a more reliable ground type. But it's probably a product of fitting in something like Titan from C, where instead of getting a reliable ground, you chose to go a more fun route. I'm glad you did, because I want to see it play out. I want to see what it looks like. But I presume at some point you're going to want to change that.
Yeah, I'm all for this is Titan pick here. I think this Titan is awesome. I would have probably preferred something like a Terra Electric, but nonetheless, still awesome mon. Um, it is a rule of thumb of mine not to draft a ground type in E tier, so I think that, like Brad is saying, that's probably something you're gonna look at down the line if Volt Switch becomes an issue, whether it's getting a Volt Absorb Electric type instead of Rotom Fan. We'll see. Your job for this season is to get Fortress to not be like minus 40 on the ASL Pokedex or whatever it is right now. I think it's like 13 and negative 13 and 52 or something like that. It's something insanely bad. But I think Spectre makes a lot of sense on this team. Zapdos, Galar, and Spectre, they're such natural pairings. I think Spectre is a demon. I think Slowking Galar almost should never make it out of the first round. I think it always should be a first round pick. It was last season. I think it was picked
Third.
third. Was it third?
It was third.
Okay. I thought Melmetal was third, but I must be mixing them up. So that mon is just so insanely good. It's going to get picked early every time. I think Hydrapple is terrifying. It's a Scald Burn away from hitting a 160 no drawback dragon move, which is crazy. I would have maybe liked it to be a Terra Captain, but again, I get why it's a Titan. I get it. I really do. Diance's one of the best fairy types in D tier. Being able to have body press that couples well with Diamond Storm, just being really super bulky. It gives you access to rocks, which you don't have a lot of access to rocks, but you do have Fortress, which can be dedicated hazards a lot of the time. My two biggest issues, outside of the fact that your ground type is a Camerupt, your physical offense isn't as consistent because a lot of the times to Titan, you can run outside of snow and just be like, you can go belly drum, ice shard. Most of your physical offense is going to run through Zapdos, Galar. You know, Diancie has some options, but most of it's going to run through Zapdos, Galar. And maybe it was just one. The ground type was the other issue. Overall, I think this is a really awesome team. There's a lot of fun things here. Getting to try Hydrapple, see how Titan is done. Like you said, Air Balloon Rotofan's a classic, and Ambipom got buffed. Like, there's a lot of new things to like about this team, and Slowking Galar is the ultimate point guard Pokemon where you can just facilitate everything. You want to go sweep a spec, you want to rip off a banded Brave Bird with Zapdos, you want to get out into Titan. Like, it's a phenomenal Pokemon, and it's going to facilitate the offense that this team wants to run. So, going to number 9 here, the person who, as we said earlier, is doing big boy things rather than joining us for a fun hour and a half grading Pokemon teams. We have Ian, or Altaria Motives, coach of the Ogre Pond Hub. Wonderful team name. Wonderful logo up there. So Ian went ahead. He went and grabbed Iron Valiant, which I know Brad's going to talk about that in a little bit. That thing is insane. Pairing it off with arguably one of the best. I think there's one that's slightly better later in the draft, but one of the best Fairy Dragon Steel cores in the league with Iron Valiant, Mega Aggron, and Hydreigon. I think that's awesome. I think Keister had Iron Valiant Hydreigon in season 17 when the Iron Valiant was first introduced, and it saw a good bit of success. Zoroark is extremely annoying to deal with. It's just Zoroark, but just way better. Savali is another mon that Brad's could probably talk a good 8 hours about how good that thing is. Just the literal jack of all trades mon. It does annoy me that he didn't do Terra Normal Arcanine, because I think Arcanine is a great E-killer. Or Terrify Burn Up. I think Grass is just kind of like fine, I guess, but I mean, I get it because his grass type doesn't resist ground. Vikavolt is always awesome. Great, really strong Volt Switch is going to give him access to webs, which I'm sure Hydreigon would appreciate. Venusaur, another one that Brett is going to enjoy. Loves Venusaur, which I'm forced to draft in Wi-Fi next season. Jellicent's great value in D tier. Claydol's great value in E tier. Lycanroc Midnight, I've actually gotten swept by that thing before as a free Terramon with stuff like Trailblaze and Rock Polish. It's really scary. And then Dodrio is also pretty good. So I think overall this is a really good team. My biggest issue with it is he drafted Mega Aggron. He signed all the forms to pick up Mega Aggron, but he didn't read the part about giving it a reliable way to recover. He didn't give it. I mean, he has Leech Seed with Venusaur, which is it, but he didn't give it Wish, and he didn't give it reliable Clericking where it could run Rest and it doesn't also have to run Sleep Talk. Because Aggron's not a mon where it wants to burn 2 move slots just to be able to recover. So I think if he gave it reliable recovery, like we're talking back to like how Hunky, he drafted Archaladon, but he also drafted Sylveon right next to it. I think if Ian went with that approach, which there's cheap wish passers for sure. Like all the evolutions are wish passers, so there's like E tier wish passers, and I think he just didn't really consider that part, and I think it would have brought this team up to at least a B plus, maybe sniffing like an A minus.
It's fair. I think there's a lot to love here, and there's a couple things to question, which is why I think we all three have it squarely in the B tier. Like Valiant, this is a crazy statement maybe to some people, but to me, Valiant's the third best mod in the format. I'm an offensive player. I like pressure. I like to go fast. I like ones that hit hard. Valiant has a great speed tier, gets item access, and just slaps so hard on both sides of the table. To me, it's the third best mod in format, behind Dragapult and Chinpao. So to get it at pick 9, I think is really exciting. And then to pair it with ones that also hit hard, have defensive flexibility, like Aggron and Hydreigon both hit hard. Heavy Slam from Aggron is going to hurt a lot of things, but they have some defensive flexibility there, similar to Arcanine, really. I think that's going to give Ian the ability to take hits while dishing out hits. Silvally is always a sleeper pick. People that have been around the ASL know Ian Silvally go way back. But it does have the ability to parting shot, get Mons in fairly safely, along with Intimidate Arcanine. I think there's some synergy there that can get Valiant in without having to take a lot of damage. Once again, we've got an E tier ground without any electric community. That's not ideal. Obviously, Silvally can support that some. But Volt Switch generally across the board is pretty annoying for this team. And Claydol's our main answer, and I don't want to be bringing Claydol a whole lot. I don't know about the rest of you. I do think this team, I don't know. Looking at the roster, I'd say, maybe week 1 struggles with some Lycanroc Midnight halves. I don't know. We'll see. But otherwise, I think it's going to be a really fun team with a really nice high-end trio.
Yeah. Ian was telling me about his plans when he was drafting, and I liked the team that he was cooking up a lot more before this one came in. Just since you guys have talked well about what he has right now, I'm just gonna tell you what could have been. He could have had like, he wanted Celebi, he wanted Gyarados, he wanted Iron Moth. Let's see, Serena was on this list at some point. I really liked what he was cooking up before this. But I'm gonna talk about Venusaur for a second because that's my favorite Pokemon ever, even though it's a D tier mon. That thing over the years, it has a Mega form, it has a Gigantamax form, which I've only ever used in VGC battles, but it's amazing. I just love fucking Venusaur. It's on this team, and I want to see it wreck
You
some
love
shit.
doing what to Venusaur?
I want to fuck the Venusaur. That's what I said.
Cut the VOD. Cut the VOD.
I love Venusaur. It's so good.
Maybe a little too much.
Yeah, just too much. It does have a dumpy though, if you look at it.
I ran up a Venusaur. Okay. Yeah. Who wants to talk about Malone, who doesn't have a Venusaur?
It's Brad's turn.
Yeah, sure. Oh, you sure? Okay. Well, if you guys want to move on,
I mean, we
I
can
would
talk
love.
about Venusaur some more if you want.
I would really love to move on. Go ahead.
well, Malone seems cool. It's fine. I think Torn doesn't belong here. Torn should have been on the rain team earlier, but overall, I think Ogerpon Hearthflame is going to be fun. Screamtail, I hate with a passion. Empoleon's going to make Screamtail even more annoying, in my opinion. Really don't like seeing those two together. But Overquill's really nice value in C. I think it brings a lot to the table. One of my favorite mons from the most recent generation. Took Cloth out of my soul, which I just am so shocked still that someone else actually wanted to deal with Cloth. Blows my mind. To me, this team really comes down to Raging Bolt. That's my big question here. As I've said before, I think if you're going to be good in the ASL, you got to hit your A's and B's. Like that's key. If you don't hit your A's and B's, you're not going to be a championship contender. Just my 2 cents. And so I think Raging Bolt will be good. I feel like it probably will. But overall, when you look at his team, doesn't want to take an Earthquake. It can damage ground types, doesn't want to take an Earthquake. Raging Bolt doesn't want to take an Earthquake. Polion doesn't want to take an Earthquake. He's got his Intimidator is a poison type. Ground types tend to give his team a real problem, especially Edgequake. And so he's going to have to rely on Donphan quite a bit for some support there. And he can kill grounds and Edgequake mons offensively, but taking hits is going to be problematic because he has a water steal as primary water. And Poliwrath could come potentially help out with that. He has 2 grass types. Hopefully they can help. So I don't think it got him quite over the hump to the A for me, because I think there are some similar weaknesses paired with neutral hits from really predominantly strong offensive moves. But overall, I think it's a fun team. Raging Bolt's going to be a big part of whether or not this team is successful.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more on the Raging Bolt thing. I'm basically projecting Raging Bolt to be pretty good. I gave this thing a B plus. I think Tornadus Therian, I don't like it as an A tier. Maybe I'm just salty because of how awful it was for me in Wi-Fi the last 2 weeks when I needed to make playoffs and just missed a Bleak Wind on a setup Great Tusk. But I think this team is really, really good outside of the I don't think Tornadus is great value, and I think Raging Bolt's a question mark, but I think Ogerpon Hearthflame is stupid in fire in a Sun team. I think Screamtail is awesome. You're gonna make it bulkier with photosynthesis. Awesome, I love it. And Polion is one of the most buffed Pokemon of this DLC. I had a pleasure of using it in Wi-Fi. Roost just brings this thing over the next level. Like, its typing is already really good. It gets Flip Turn, it gets Knockoff, it gets Rocks, it gets Defog, it gets Defog in this format. I didn't even use it with Defog, and I thought it was insane. It's just awesome. I think Overquill is also really, really good. It's such a good dedicated lead mon that really hits hard too. Gets access to Flip Turn. He solves a little bit of hazard issues because you have to address those issues with Hearthflame. And Donphan's just a staple. I know he was sniped on Torkoal because Shadow and Malone went back and forth. Shadow got sniped on Raging Bolt, then Malone gets sniped on Torkoal. But I think Ninetales is great. Blake showed how good it was. I mean, Brad, did what, 8 years ago, showed how good it was in the ASL Season 1 finals. Nice little throwback right there. Cryogonal, decent budget spinner. I don't hate it. Cloth, sure, why not? It was pretty funny to see how mad Brad was in chat. That motherfucker took Cloth. I don't
couldn't
know.
believe somebody else wanted it. Like, why? Why does somebody else want it? I don't even want it. I just want to try it. What are you doing?
I don't get why it's free Terra. I think Polyrath would have been a much better used free Terra. Polyrath is awesome. Brambleghast is awesome. I'll just go out and say it. This is the best E tier draft of the entire league. I don't think it's particularly close in my opinion. I think Polyrath is one of the best water types. Definitely the best fighting type in E tier. I think Brambleghast has a lot of use now that it gets Poltergeist. People forget it's also 90 speed and 115 attack. That thing hits like a truck. And Lily brought this up to me, but it actually completely walls Mega Pidgeot. Mega
Really?
Pidgeot was not drafted, but it's just very interesting to note. Completely walls the entire Mega Pidgeot set.
Super important to know.
It's crazy, but I think the biggest things holding me back on this team are the fact that Tornadus was drafted last season. It just always feels like it doesn't elevate the team enough. You're obviously never running Hurricane in a Sun team, so sorry. You're gonna have to Bleak Wind it, and I don't have a good track record with that. I think Tornadus is overall a really good Pokemon, but I would have really liked to have seen something that was a little bit better. Um, I know Landorus Therian was available. I think that could have possibly been a little bit better for this team. Because you could get some flying spam in C tier and you get Lando T on this team. I think with Empoleon, with Screamtail, with everything that this team gives you, I think it would have been a little bit better. So I think he completely maximized his low tier picks, but the top end, like Brad said, Raging Bull has a lot of question marks. I think it'll be good, but it's hard to say, and I just don't think he really maximizes A tier pick. But overall, it's a good team, a lot of new fun stuff to be able to use. So I think I overall like it. Who wants to talk about the absolute biggest genre of the draft, who probably took up more time than most people combined?
I can
Well,
start this
let me
one.
say this just real quick on Malone's team. Still, he did see Torkoal get dropped, right? So I mean, he does have
True.
the option if he wanted Torkoal to go back to it. But I just wanted to throw my 2 cents on that. It's like I don't know that he should.
I
I
agree.
don't think he struggles in the defensive department. He's got plenty of Pokemons. I think give Ninetales a chance to breathe and see what it can do. Just my 2 cents.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I like I said, I think if anything, you would swap out Tornadus for something, and then swap Tornadus and Donphan for something. But I 100% agree with that. All right, Brett,
All right.
unload on this draft.
I'll unload. I personally, just talking about his first two A1 tier and his B tier. I really like the
Just
pairing of a Slowking with
question
Baxcalibur.
though.
What?
You just did the whole Venusaur thing. Are you sure you're ready?
I mean, I kind of have to wait an hour. I mean, we've already been here for 2 hours, so.
I just no. I didn't know. My bad.
I really like a Slowking with Baxcalibur. I prefer Slowking Galar with it, but regular Slowking works. I had the pleasure of using those two in the Wi-Fi league that I played 4 matches of and then quit because nobody wanted to do their matches. Those two are pretty good together, so I always like it when somebody drafts those two. Mega Lopunny, we're allowing Power Up Punch again, so that thing with Lash Resort is gonna hit like a truck. Thunderous is always fun. I liked it when I used it way back in the day. It's always fun shenanigans with that thing. Amoonguss is another grass poison type. He has the Regenerator core with Slowking there. So that's going to be nice to have. And then you got Klefki, which can do a lot of prankster stuff along with Thunderous. You got 2 prankster things there. So have fun dealing with that, everybody. I don't personally like Gligar as his rock. Is that his only rocker? Or just got Kofag. Does Kofag get rock?
It does not. So he
Oh,
has
Brad's what
rocks
I'm
on
curious.
Gligar, spikes on Klefki, and then toxic spikes on Kaffa.
Yeah, I don't like Gligar as the only rocker. I don't like that mon defensively. It dies to basically every ice move. I just really don't like Gligar. And then we have Scorch, that thing finally getting drafted again. Dravos is rejoicing.
Woo woo!
Mr. Rhyme hasn't seen the ASL field in quite some time. So it'll be nice to see that again. And Stoutland is here. There's no sand. But yes.
But he's here.
He's here.
He is here.
I'd also like to mention that Brad's gone. He didn't like the fact that I was talking about Slow King and Excalibur.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair. It's pretty gross. Whatever he comes back, we'll either circle back or whatever. So, as the resident Bax connoisseur who showed these people that it was very dumb to have Excalibur in B tier. Bax jumping A2 going all the way up to A1. I think Excalibur is probably one of the best mons in the format. And it got better. It gets scale shot now. As if the loaded dice set wasn't scary enough. I think Susie, having played the entire game, like our game last season, Susie outplayed me the entire game. I came in on the exact right turn on Excalibur and instantly won the game. This mon is just genuinely stupid. You can't will-o-wisp it, so there's no way to burn it. You have a really bulky mon in its own right. It's almost as bulky as Curum Black, which is really, really deceptive. But this thing is super bulky. It has over base 100 HP, a phenomenal typing, gets access to Earthquake, which is really all it needs. Like I said, it gets scale shot now outside of having Dragon Dance, but it can, if you don't need the attack, you can get the speed in other means. Slow King is the perfect partner to be able to chilly reception out into Excalibur, giving it that double defense, which I think is awesome. Slow King just makes a lot of sense. Megalopony getting buffed, it really needed it, to be honest. It gives a little bit more bark to its Last Resort set. I think Thunderous makes so much sense. You want to form that Bolt Beam core. Amoonguss, you're forming that regen core. There's a lot of cores to like about this team. Klefki is a really good defensive backbone on this team, because before it's getting spammed by dragon moves and whatnot. And then Gligar. I'm not also the biggest fan of Gligar, but I get it, because before at this point in the draft, he didn't really have a lot of removal, so it makes sense. I think free Terra Kappa is ridiculous. You can just choose it to check something every single week. It's just phenomenal. Honchkrow is a solid D tier pick, to be honest. I think Scorch is awesome. And now we get to the part that I don't understand. I really don't like Mr. Rhyme. I think Alolan Sandslash was a home run pick for this team, because he doesn't have a good fairy killer. He has a Amoonguss and Klefki. Really bad. He also lacks removal. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Alolan Sandslash gets rocks. I could be wrong on that one.
I think so. I think it gets spiked.
I think so too. Yeah. So Alolan Sandslash kind of just fixed every hole that this team was kind of dealing with, and it also gave him another snow abuser, and he just went Mr. Rhyme, so I didn't really understand that. Stoutland also didn't make really any sense at all. Like we said, he's here. Good for him. Proud of him. But I don't get it. He just kind of wasted his E tier. I think, again, Scorch is awesome, but not having Alolan Sandslash on this team is a big head scratcher, when it doesn't sit right with me that this team doesn't have Alolan Sandslash. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of annoying shit. I think a regen core plus free Terra Kappa, Gligar, and Klefki is just gross. And then the offensive core of Excalibur, Thunderous, and Megalopony is insane. And more of what we were talking about with Glow King being this point guard type of mon. Slow King is the same thing. You're slow. You're going to chilly reception out to a threat. The threat doesn't have to take damage, and they can just instantly start killing stuff. So overall, I think this team is pretty solid. I helped Susie a good bit drafting it. There's just the last half of the draft leaves me questioning how things went almost.
So sorry.
Whoa,
about that.
hey.
My computer crashed.
He's back.
I disappeared for a little while. I don't know when it crashed. Sure what I missed. Did I say anything about this team?
You
No.
did not say anything about Susie's team. You are just in time.
No. this is sorry about that. I think this team is like it's one of my lower ranked teams, but it's like there's problems with it, but really nice things. Like Excalibur Slowking makes total sense, no questions about it. Really like that. Thunderous, really nice support for things that want to prey upon the top a little bit. Also has some really nice special attack. I think that's going to be very helpful. Amoonguss, Slowking together, frustrating, going to be annoying. Really like those four. Don't so much love Lopunny, but brings in a lot of speed, brings in some immediate offense, really nice move, pull access. I get it. I have no problem with it. My main issue with this team, and I think I caught at just the very end of what Brett was saying, and I think it's really the notes that I would have is I don't think the bottom half of this team does a great job of complementing the top half of this team. Like Lopunny and Stoutland probably should not bring together. Honchkrow and Thunderous are going to give you some common problems. Rhyme has a lot of typing problems if it's going to be brought with Slowking. Excalibur, it just Coffagrius and Slowking suffer from some similar issues. It's not that you can't have common weaknesses on a team. I just think that some of these bottom mons are not going to enable some of these top mons to be better. Right? I don't know that the bottom half of this team really supports this top half of this team in a way that's going to be meaningful. Whereas, like, Stoutland's slower physical attacking type, maybe if you went with more of a wish passing normal type that has a bit of a different role, or instead of maybe Mr. Rhyme, you didn't increase the likelihood of Slowking suffering from Dark Ghost and you went a different way. I don't know. Or even a second ground type. I'm for second ground types. I think that's okay because Gligar is going to have some matchups where it's terrible, and so maybe instead of Honchkrow, you want something different that can support the team even if Gligar can't come. So I like the top half. I think the top half is going to be good and really problematic, but I don't think the bottom half supports well enough to enable this team to be what it wants to be.
Susie, if you're watching, please drop Mr. Rhyme for Lil and Sandslash. It'll solve like most of the problems with this team. But moving on to what is possibly the best draft. Who wants to start out with BGC here? And a lot of new toys.
Yeah, I like a lot of things. I like most of the things. Most of them. I think Sceptile and Scolipede give you really nice speed along with Iron Boulder. High-end speed. Hitmonlee obviously gives you some really cool, threatening physical offense, along with the ability to increase your speed. He's got spikes, removal, some fancy tricks within some of those mons. It's a pretty imposing roster. If I was to proffer a complaint, I don't know that I love Celesteela, Terapagos, and Tapu Fini on the same roster. They're all kind of slower than base 100, not super reliable recovery, kind of middling attackers, not breakers, not nothing. Kind of middling attackers with not great recovery options. So I don't know that all three of those need to be on the same team. Maybe one of them could be something else. But overall, I think it's a really fun team with some really cool offensive options. Maybe could use like one special breaker. Maybe if we could replace Celesteela or something like that and just add in a special breaker. But otherwise, it's a really nice team.
Yeah, I think something that I'm really excited to see is Mega Sceptile also gets Shed Tail as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. I really want to see him use Shed Tail well. It is yet to be used fairly decently in the ASL. And with the bulk he has on like Tapu Fini, Terrapagos, maybe Shed Tail could do something with those two. Incineroar is always a splashable Pokemon you can put on a lot of different rosters, so I like that in C tier. Scolipede, I haven't seen in quite a bit. I'm excited to see that on this team as well with the speed boost shenanigans, toxic spikes, other things that it can do. Hitmonlee, I'm sad that I haven't. I'm just gonna talk about this for a second. I really wanted somebody to draft Hitmonchan so that I could use a soundbite that is in the ASL on the soundboard. I'm gonna play it real quick.
Hitmonchan got a 6-0 sweep in the ASL.
Yeah, I really wanted to use that, but we have Hitmonlee here. It can do unburden things, and with it being a Terra captain, it could probably catch some people off guard. I don't really like the lower tier besides Misdreavus. Never been that big of a fan of Luxray and Mr. Mime Galler. I've always liked Mr. Rhyme more, but Mr. Mime's there.
Something that's funny to note is Mr. Rhyme was taken one pick before Mr. Mime Galler, which is incredibly funny that in the 11th round, Mr. Rhyme was a snipe. But I think I echo a lot of the same things. I think the E tier is almost a waste, in my opinion. It just kind of felt like there's no direction for this E tier. And a lot of the best rosters in the ASL history, you got to make use of 12 Mons. I think Luxray has no role in this team. You already have Intimidate. You already have an Electric type. Why is it here? Mr. Mime Galler is probably going to come once, maybe, but I would have almost preferred you getting a different, like, Ice Spammer. Like, I feel like Ice Spam is really important in this team, but I just don't think Mr. Mime Galler is the Mon to do it. I don't hate Mr. Vis. I think Celesteela in A tier is awful. I'm going to go out and say it. I think Celesteela in A tier is awful. Especially on a team where you don't have a defensive ground type. Like what Brad was talking about earlier. We're in the business of stacking ground types. I think you should have had a ground type instead of Luxray. Make it a little bit harder to just Volt Switch on your Celesteela. Maybe if Sandy Shocks isn't there, just because Sandy Shocks is not the bulkiest. Good Mon, but it's just not. It's not its job. But I think Terapagos has a chance to be one of the best Mons in B tier. I kind of look at it under the same scope as like a slightly worse version of Great Tusk, and the idea that you're spinning out of a middling speed tier. You have ways to set up and like Calm Mind your bulk up. You have insane coverage, which Tropicos is actually better than Great Tusk. Tropicos doesn't quite have as much immediate power, and immediate power on the special side isn't as impressive as the physical side for things like Assault Vest, for things like Blissey, Chansey, stuff like that. Physical offense immediately is usually a bit better, but I think Terapagos is insanely good. It's one of the best spinners for sure. Iron Boulder, I don't know how to feel about yet. I think it's good. I think it's really good, but I think it's one of the worst typings ever. We'll see. It definitely has the stats to be good. I just really think it's gonna miss out on those stab close combats that would need to break through steel types. I think Tapu Fini is one of the best defensive Mons. Could be the best tier B. Love Tapu Fini. Should have won defensive Mon of the year last season on my team. I'm still pissed that Ursaring won it coming to 6 games, which is just insane to me that that's how it was voted. But anyways, I think Mega Sceptile's awesome value, gets the Shed Tail, and it's just 145 speed and really good offenses, all things considered, decent enough coverage. Free Terra Hitmonlee is very interesting. Getting Terra Blast helps that thing sweep a lot easier in a terrain-based team in Tapu Fini. I think it's my favorite team in the draft. I'll be honest. I think it's my favorite team. Up there with something like Brad's team, as I also put an A-. Didn't give a lot of things A's, that's for sure. But this team is something that is so versatile and is just so insanely good, top to almost bottom, because my biggest gripe is, again, that E tier is almost wasted. I think he'll combined bring those 3 to 4 games. I would probably hold it to that, but I think overall this is a really awesome team. Okay, so moving into number 13, we have myself. I'll go ahead and just start off with this team. Um, so I first started out with the draft with Zapdos Heatran, had to just get some versatile mons. I was originally gonna take Hisui and Samurott in the first round. That was my plan this whole time, to go Hisui and Samurott in the first round, and then get Zapdos in the second round. But I really couldn't. Funny enough, someone in this call took it, but which I was okay with. I was okay with because I understood that it was going to get taken just because I couldn't afford to go with Heatran because I wanted the Heatran Mega Venusaur. That's such a good core defensively. Oh my god, it is just, how do you break through it? I have a lot of success with Mega Venusaur and I really wanted to get back to it. I got Roaring Moon towards the end. I originally was going to go Garchomp for most of the draft. I decided in the 11th round that I wanted Roaring Moon, so I have Phione as a result. But Lycanroc Dusk had a lot of success last season on Shadow's team. It's just a monster. It can sweep a lot of games. Azelf, something I've wanted to use for a really long time. Has some interesting like Gen 6 strats where we run Sunny Day, Focus Sash, run something like U-Turn, Stealth Rocks, Focus Sash, Explosion, Sunny Day, get Roaring Moon going. So that's some option I have. Got Comfey as one of the best fairy types in tier D. I've gotten swept by that thing an embarrassing amount of times.
Didn't learn the first time.
Nope, not the second or the third either. Triage is very, very broken. Can run Life Orb very comfortably because you're going to get a lot back with Draining Kiss. Hisuian Decidueye, a mon I really, really, really wanted to use. I think Scrappy with triple arrows is just slightly beatable in a lot of ways. Like, it's really hard to swap into. Defog U-turn super good. Runerigius, had to pivot to that last second when I wasn't going Garchomp, but I think Runerigius is really good. I wish it had a better special attack stat so I could utilize Shadow Ball, but we'll rip off some Poltergeists. If you guys remember like an hour ago when I said I drafted a Mon for Superior, it's Crocolore. Crocolore does not give two shits about you setting up with your Superior. I think Crocolore is insane defensively. Got it as a free Terra, just so I can just check whatever I want as a good unaware Mon. Kangaskhan, really good Wish Passer. Bulky Normal. And then Phione does get Take Heart. This is probably the one that I'm the most hesitant about. Could swap it up middle of the season, but I think Phione is interesting enough with Take Heart that it was worth trying my hand at.
I love Zapdos. Everyone knows I love Zapdos. Zapdos is so reliable. It's one of the few mons, in my opinion, that you can almost insert any problem and solve it with a Zapdos set. It's not completely true, but it's almost true. And with this type of a game, that's incredibly valuable. I think Zapdos Heatran's a tried true core that always works. You're perfectly fine with those two. I don't even know that Venusaur is necessary for that core to function, but Venusaur certainly adds to it. I like the vast majority of the team. My complaints are fairly minor. I would love to have seen, told just before, I would love to have seen Decidueye get the Terra. I think Decidueye's biggest issue is its typing. I think its move pool is really fun, has some cool tricks, cool abilities, but its typing is garbage. If you took that away, I think it could play a little of its worth. Main other issue, or maybe my predominant issue, is just I do think water is one of the premier typings in Draft League. Bulky water is a known thing. Even physical offensive water has grown so much over the last few generations. There was a time when it was like for Alligator and now there's so many physical attacking waters. And to see that important of a typing get relegated to a pick 152, bit concerning maybe, but hopefully it won't be a major issue.
I'm just gonna say one thing because we've already been here for 2 hours. He drafted Mega Venusaur. I've already spoke on how much I love Venusaur.
Please don't destroy this Mon too. Please don't ruin this one too.
I'm just gonna bring. I can't.
Because it gets thicker.
It gets thicker. That's what I was gonna say. It's got a thicker dumpy than regular Venusaur that's thick fat.
Oh god.
Let's move on to Wolf. I really like his team. Lily told me initially at the start of the draft when we were trying to figure out if I could draft Spectrier at the very beginning or if I was fine waiting on it until the very end. Wolf was kind of the only one that I was unsure on, and he usually drafts towards a theme. And the whole time, I had no idea what this theme was until Hutch asked him at the very end. His team theme is anything that can come out of the Gen 2 games or like Generation 2. So like Weavile, I guess, is because it's a evolution of Sneasel, and then Yanmega because it's an evolution of Yama. But all things considered, this being the second time in a row he's done a Gen 2 theme, basically. This draft is actually pretty nice, I would say. Just Mega Scizor, it's always good. Defensively, offensively, do freaking everything. Clefable, I've always been mixed. I've had mixed feelings about this thing since after Generation 6. Weavile is really strong. It doesn't have Pursuit because that thing's been gone for a while, but Weavile got back, at least for Paldea decks, it got back access to knockoff and triple axle recently, so that's really good. Dragonite, we can't Terra this thing, but if we could, it would be a problem. Multi-skill's good. It can do setup shenanigans. And then Tentacruel, I'll move down here to Tentacruel. That thing, I've always seen Brad use it really well. Brad and TCP are probably the two people I've seen use Tentacruel to its fullest extent. That thing can be a problem. He has 2 water types here. It's nice that Tentacruel isn't weak to grass, but I don't really like seeing the 2 water types on the team. Typhlosion with Terrifier is always really good because you can do burn up, and then he has some really interesting E tier picks with Smeargle being able to do basically whatever he wants, and then Lickitung being a bulky monster.
Yeah, one of the things I've consistently said is I feel like you have to nail your A and B in order to be great. I think he nailed his A and his B. I think there's a lot of things after that that I question, but the fact that he nailed his A and his B is really going to support this team so tremendously well. I think his first 5 picks are all very good, on theme, makes sense, powerful, good defensively, but offensively, maybe not great speed tiers, but overall top 5, really strong. Typhlosion we've seen in the ASL be a real problem for people, but I don't know that Smeargle really has a place. I don't know that Lickitung really has a place. I question those. Jolteon is quick and hits pretty hard, relatively hard, but lacks a lot of versatility. And Yanmega should be pretty powerful offensively, but also lacks a lot of versatility. And Typhlosion, quite frankly, lacks a lot of versatility. Tentacruel can be good and can be used with a lot of skill and valuable, but in general, it's typically used poorly. So I'm curious as to the C and below of this team. I hope that he uses them outside of just their standard buckets. You know, if Jolteon every week is just fast volt switch and Typhlosion's just burn up Terra, I think his team's going to get pretty vanilla pretty quickly, and that typically leads to poor results. So A and B, awesome, and that will support the team, but I question the rest of it.
So I have a lot of thoughts about this team. The first thing that jumps out to me is this is a Oras wet dream to get Mega Scizor, Clefable, Weavile, and Dragonite on the same team. If we go in a time machine and go back to Gen 6, Mega Scizor is a first round pick, Clefable is a first round pick, Weavile is a top 5 pick, and Dragonite is usually a first round to back end, first round to early second round pick. those top 4 Mons, awesome in Gen 6. Obviously not as good as time has gone on, as power creep has happened, but we still need to consider that this is a really, really good core. This, in my opinion, when I was talking about Ian's team earlier, this is the best Fairy Dragon Steel core in the league. Mega Scizor, Clefable, Dragonite, just insane. Clefable is still getting by as being just bulky enough to live 2 at KOs. It's what it's made its all its money on since Gen 6 becoming a fairy type. I think the unaware core is really undervalued here. Clefable, Quagsire, you're not setting up on this team. It's just not happening. You can bring one of them specially defensive, bring one of them physically defensive. There's no way you're setting up on this team and beating it. So I think that's a great element that Wolf addressed. I think Jolteon is really good now. Jolteon gets Alluring Voice, which is interesting. Similar to Dazzling Gleam, but it gets the effect of, I believe it confuses if the opponent is setting up, I believe, which gives something like an electric type a lot of versatility in a fairy type move. I would have probably liked to see that get Terra'd. I agree with Typhlosion being the Terra, but I would have probably set Terra, Jolteon, and Ice just because it's so good. Jolteon's gotten Calm Mind as well. Jolteon's really good now. And I would have probably free Terra Typhlosion, but I get it. I get it with the Yon Mega. I think Tentacruel is really good here. It's an awesome Mon in D tier. It's just great hazard control all around. And then I think the E tier was a complete waste. Same argument as, I think it was BGC's team. Yeah. Where it's like this E tier is just essentially a waste. I don't like Lickitung. I don't think it's good. I get it. I get the theme. Wolf decided that having him just be native to Gen 2, and yes, I'm including Great Tusk in that, is probably not good because it felt like he was a phenomenal player last season that was just so hard, like handicapped by his team that he couldn't really get it over the line. But I think this team could get it over the line. Like I was very close to getting this to an A minus. Weavile is a monster in the ASL. It always has been. Up there with the likes of like Infernape is like just being an offensive masterpiece in this league. I think overall he did really good. I think if we're sitting here in Gen 6, this is an A+ draft. But we're sitting here in Gen 9, and I still think it's a B+ draft. Has a couple issues. It's not the best at setting up rocks. Your only good rocker is Quagsire, because I don't think you're ever bringing Sandslash. There's no point. So I think it lacks a couple things, but the fact that he's working in a theme and we know how good he was in a much worse team last season, I think this is going to be a good team. I think a lot of good offense, a lot of good defense, a couple things I would have liked to change, but I'm really excited to especially see how Yon Mega turns out. Typhlosion was such a problem for everyone last season, so I think this is a really good draft. I think that about wraps it up. If you guys want to say anything about any of the other teams that you have thought of in the meantime?
Just say that Brett's views on Venusaur are not representative of the ASL as a whole.
Thank you for saying that. Forgot to say that.
That's just one person's opinion who's not representative.
I personally think there's more than one person's opinion that is like mine.
Okay, Pokemon are not objects, Brett. They're not objects. Good God.
I mean,
okay.
You could argue that Klefki is kind of an object.
Shut up. Okay. Anyways.
Hold on. Before you go, I would like to say one actual thing, though. Hutch put this amazing document together in the span of, I think, 2 hours-ish, maybe less.
Something like that.
And it's an automatic draft rankings doc, so now we don't have to put the tab, the images one by one on the document. And for that, I would like to play this soundbite. It's just TCP saying Hutch over and over again. So.
Oh, thank you, TCP. You're too kind. Still feel you in spirit here.
All
right. With that said, we're gonna get on out of here. We're looking at an hour 34 right now. We're not gonna take up any more of your time.
In 2 hours.
Hour 34.
An hour 34? We spent 30 minutes doing what?
We're waiting for Brad to rank everything.
Oh yeah.
Because he didn't
Yeah.
do it earlier in the day.
No,
But
some of us work.
yeah, well, anyways, we had better things to do like rank Pokemon. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Maybe we'll have some later content as we get close to the playoffs. But thank you all for tuning in.
Deuces.
Bye.